a better job. And so what procedures are you putting in place to hold agents accountable who clearly have a hot trigger and who clearly abuse their authority because someone has a phone and a whistle?
Ma'am, ICE does have the Office of Professional Responsibility. It's a robust internal investigation agency that does investigate allegations of special agent or deportation officer misconduct. And we do take everyone seriously and we do investigate those.
Well, those are not being publicly reported. And so that's where there's a huge breach of the public trust because there does not appear to be any accountability. Thank you, nonetheless.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. McKenzie, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate all of our testifiers being here today. Before I begin, I would like to thank all of our members of law enforcement across the country who work every day to keep our communities safe, and also to their families that sacrifice. We know that it's a challenging job, and the environment is made particularly challenging by those who want to oppose our law enforcement from carrying out their lawful duties to keep everybody in our country and our communities safe. As was discussed earlier, there are a couple areas though where I think it's appropriate to discuss potential reforms and the way that we can improve our government operations. DHS guidance indicates that ICE does not arrest or detain U.S. citizens. On the other hand, social media is full of reports and accusations that this is occurring. As you know, any accusation that an American citizen's rights are violated is very serious. Can you clarify, Mr. Lyons, whether this is something that occurs, and what are the circumstances where a U.S. citizen might be detained, and what steps does ICE take to prevent mistakes?
Yes, sir. I appreciate the question. Well, unfortunately, there's a misnomer that ICE is just a civil enforcement agency, and that's completely wrong. ICE enforces over 400 criminal statutes as well. Special agents, especially with the Homeland Security investigations, they're consistently out there doing human trafficking cases, drug cases, terrorism cases. We do encounter U.S. citizens, and those who do commit federal crimes are arrested. But under Title VIII, no U.S. citizen is subject to civil immigration enforcement, and that just doesn't happen. There are multiple safeguards in that way, and if a U.S. citizen is detained in the course of an immigration investigation, they're quickly released. We don't take action on American citizens.
If it does occur where a U.S. citizen is detained during the course of another investigation, how is that documented and conveyed to the public about the fact that this did occur and what the circumstances around that were?
So, sir, when if you say it's a separate investigation, if it comes to a criminal case, obviously a lot of those are under seal or ongoing investigations. We won't expose that. But we're transparent in the case when it comes to any U.S. citizen that's detained in any law enforcement operations that's subsequently arrested.
I appreciate that. I think greater transparency could be beneficial for both the American public and everybody involved here if we clearly articulate what occurred in many of these instances. I've seen it myself when I'm looking into local issues in our community. There are oftentimes two sides of the story, and when it is actually conveyed what did occur and why it occurred, there's a greater understanding in our local community of the law enforcement activities that occurred. The second thing I would like to hit on is jurisdictions, which are sometimes referred to sanctuary cities. Not a clear definition, as we all know, but local authorities in our community. We have Northampton County, which does not honor ICE detainer requests for 48 hours and properly convey to ICE and law enforcement about the release of that individual, when that may occur, or even during that detainer period, allow ICE to come onto their property to make an arrest in a secure facility. Obviously, that leaves our community in a vulnerable position. In our case, members of Trende Aragua, domestic abusers, have been released onto the street, and ICE had to stake out that location, making the arrests in an unsecure way out in the local community. From your perspective, how does this dynamic affect public safety and day-to-day operations, and where or how can we change and improve the coordination between ICE and state and local partners?
Thank you, sir. Again, and what I would say is just very basic communication would go along with public safety. You know, ICE respects and abides by state and municipality laws as well, where sometimes you can't hold for any reasons. But a simple phone call to let us know that that individual is going to be released, or if that individual is released, sharing that biographical data with us will go a long way. Because the last thing we want is criminal legal aliens to go back into the community, and more often than not, they prey upon other migrants who are coming here for a better life, yet that they can hide in plain sight because these sanctuary jurisdictions won't just pick up a phone, notify ICE that they're being re-released.
Well, I appreciate that. I think we want full cooperation between our local law enforcement and federal agents. When they are trying to do their job, if somebody is on a detainer, they should be allowed onto that property, given the ability within that detainer window to make a lawful arrest. I think it would go a long way to keeping our community safe. I would like to thank all of you again for being here. The fact that you are here and present for this kind of testimony, I think, brings greater accountability and increases the ability for us to make reforms in Congress. Thank you again.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. Poe, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our ranking member, Thompson. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for being here. Let me just be clear. Secretary No must step down or be impeached by the House, period. The lawlessness, the cruelty, the outright viciousness that she has created has destroyed an agency whose very mission is to protect our country. Under Noam's leadership, congressional oversight is ignored, detention visits are blocked, due process is ignored, and laws are broken without thought. This is the first time any of you have testified before our committee. It took 2 American citizens being murdered in cold blood to get you to show up. ICE raided schools, churches, and hospitals. And let's not forget 5-year-old Liam Ramos. You used him as a bait and then detained him despite his father legally seeking asylum. Liam is the face of your cruelty. My district is one of the most ethnically diverse in America. Our diversity is our strength, but somehow you all seem to believe it's a weakness. Last fall, the Supreme Court greenlit ICE's ability to yank people off the street based on one thing, such as, quote, the type of work one does, speaking Spanish or speaking with an accent, and their apparent race or ethnicity. Mr. Lyons, I speak Spanish. If I wasn't wearing my member pin, would me being a Latina or speaking Spanish be enough for ICE agents to harass me or shove me into one of your unmarked cars?
No, ma'am.
I speak for all of us when I say that I think we know the real answer to this. These are the realities traumatizing my constituents. We know that ICE is transferring New Jersey detainees to other states like Texas, ripping them from their families and leaving them unable to challenge their detention. Mr. ICE, yes or no? I'm sorry, Mr. Lyons. Yes or no? Will you provide us with a list of people ICE has transferred from New Jersey to other states so that I can inform their families where they are?
Yes, ma'am.
These are people like my constituent, Lee Cordilla, whose ICE shipped to Texas and continues to detain despite 2 judicial orders compelling her release. Over the weekend, Lee Cow was hospitalized for 72 hours while her family had no idea where she was at, nor the status of her condition. Mr. Lyons, would you be willing to look into this to make sure to release my constituent? Why have we failed? Why have you failed to inform her family where she was sent and the status of her condition? When will she be freed?
Yes, ma'am, you have my commitment that I'll look into that.
Thank you. Now soon, Mr. Lyons and all of you, my district will host the World Cup matches, and hundreds of thousands of visitors will come. Visitors confidence is plummeting and jeopardizing the World Cup. Mr. Lyon, will you commit to ensure that pausing its operations and raise at FIFA matches and other FIFA-sanctioned public events?
Ma'am, ICE, specifically Homeland Security Investigations, is a key part of the overall security apparatus for the World Cup. We're dedicated to securing that operation, and we're dedicated to the security of all the participants as well as visitors.
You realize that if they feel that they're going to be wrongfully incarcerated or wrongfully pulled out, that's going to hurt this entire process. I hope you realize that.
Yes, ma'am, and ICE is dedicated to ensuring that everyone that visits the facilities will have a safe and secure event.
Without these assurances, our local communities and national reputations will indeed be suffered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Using the trope, diversity is our strength as an excuse for lawlessness is unbelievably naive and dangerous. Nobody in this room would say that diversity is a bad thing. Lawlessness is a bad thing. Law and order is much more of our strength than open border policies that welcomes anybody with no vetting. And when you get down to the nuts and bolts of this issue, we would not be having this hearing if the Democrats attacked illegal immigration with the same vigor that they're attacking law enforcement and the men at this table. It's a fact. And it's worth noting that the dishonesty in framing these issues has been unbelievably obvious, it's been consistent, and just as an anecdote, Mr. Lyons, was Liam used as bait by your agency?
No, sir. Actually, law enforcement officers took care of the child. That's the father of Brandon and Madam.
Walk us through what that means.
So, sir, the individual that was driving that vehicle with Liam was in fled from the scene from the officers. He was obviously upset. We comforted him. The officers actually placed him in one of our vehicles, played his favorite song, favorite music, and they took him to McDonald's.
You all got him McDonald's. So you all did not abduct him, you did not use him as bait. Any characterization of that is a lie. And it has been repeated over and over by the Democrats to frame your agency. You know, it's worth noting again, the Democrats fought to prevent any vetting of 20 million illegal immigrants into this country over the last 4 years. They attack agents rather than those who are assaulting agents today. They continually misframe what's happening in the ground. They continually malign the law enforcement officers who are providing legal structure to otherwise lawless landscapes in this country. And it's worth noting that there have been roughly 2 million people in the country who have been removed in the last year, some voluntarily, and then some by forced deportations. We've heard roughly about 25 cases of alleged abuse. Some of them, as I just pointed out, are dishonestly framed. But let's do a favor to the Democratic side. Let's increase that number by 1,000 times. 25,000 cases of alleged abuse or improper protocols. We are still operating at roughly 99% proficiency. Given the scale of the problem, the scale of the solution that you all are operating under, your agents are doing a remarkable job, and I thank you. But one issue that I want to talk about is this idea of sanctuary policies. Sanctuary policies is not just a passive relinquishing effort. It's an active obstruction. Isn't that true, Mr. Lyons?
Yes, sir.
And what I mean by that is, when I say it's an active, to be specific, there are sanctuary states and cities that will release violent criminals rather than handing them over to pursuing federal law enforcement. Isn't that correct?
That's correct, sir.
I left the hearing a few moments ago just to find a quick example. Here's one right behind me. Just 30 hours ago, an illegal alien arrested for stabbing an American in the back. He was charged with attempted murder. He pled to a lesser offense. The feds wanted him, sought a detainer, and then rather than hold him for your agent's pickup, he was released back into the streets of Maryland. That is not an unusual action from local hostile law enforcement, is it, Mr. Lyons?
No, sir, that's what we face every day.
So we've heard the Democrats complain that we're not getting the worst of the worst, but their sanctuary jurisdictions that control roughly 40% of this country's population will actively release